Close your eyes now and let the world around you grow quiet. Tonight, we travel back nearly 2,000 years to a time when the greatest empire the world had ever known stretched from the misty hills of Britain to the burning sands of Arabia. And in the heart of that empire, in the city of Rome, a boy was born who would become the most unlikely of emperors. His name was Marcus Annius Verus, and he was born on the 26th of April, in the year 121. He did not come from nothing. His family was wealthy and well-connected, of Spanish origin, settled in Rome for generations. His grandfather had served as consul 3 times. His aunt would marry the Emperor Antoninus Pius. But what set young Marcus apart was not his bloodline. It was his character. Even as a small child, Marcus was drawn to seriousness. Where other boys his age chased games and amusement, Marcus asked questions. He wanted to understand why people suffered, why they argued, why they feared death. His father died when Marcus was only 3 years old. His mother, Domitia Lucilla, raised him with care, but it was his grandfather who shaped his earliest years. From him, Marcus learned the value of dignity without arrogance, of quiet strength. He wrote of this later, in the pages of what we now call the Meditations. He said his grandfather taught him good morals and the government of my temper, and there was something else, something that would define his entire life. From a very young age, Marcus fell in love with philosophy. At the age of 11, he began dressing in the rough cloak of a philosopher. He slept on the ground instead of his bed. He practiced enduring cold and discomfort, not because anyone forced him to, but because he wanted to train his mind to be free from dependence on comfort. His mother worried. She thought he was being too hard on himself, but Marcus had found something that most people search for their entire lives. He had found a way to think clearly about what truly mattered. And so tonight, as you lie here, let the example of this young boy settle into your mind. A boy who chose the hard path, not out of punishment, but out of love for wisdom. Let your breathing slow and your body begin to soften into rest. As Marcus grew, he was given the finest teachers in the Roman Empire. But the teachers who shaped him most were not the ones who taught him rhetoric or grammar. They were the Stoic philosophers. The first was Junius Rusticus, a man of few words and deep conviction. Rusticus did something that changed Marcus's life forever. He introduced the young man to the writings of Epictetus, a former slave who had become one of the greatest philosophers in history. Imagine that for a moment. The future ruler of the most powerful empire on earth, learning wisdom from the words of a man who had once been owned by another human being. This was the heart of Stoic philosophy, that our suffering comes not from what happens to us, but from how we interpret what happens to us. Marcus also studied under Apollonius of Chalcedon, who taught him freedom of will and undeviating steadiness of purpose. And from Sextus of Chaeronea, he learned benevolence, simplicity, and how to live without the need of praise from others. In the Meditations, Marcus dedicates the entire first book to thanking his teachers, not for what they taught him in words, but for what they showed him in how they lived. He wrote, "From Rusticus I received the impression that my character required improvement and discipline." Think about that. A man destined to rule the world. And the lesson he valued most was that he still had much to learn. There is something deeply peaceful in that idea, that we are never finished growing. That even the most powerful person who ever lived saw himself as a student. Let that thought carry you deeper now, into rest. You do not need to be perfect tonight. You do not need to have all the answers. You are still learning. And that is enough. When Marcus was 16 years old, something happened that would alter the course of his life and the course of history. The Emperor Hadrian, nearing the end of his life, was looking for a successor. He chose Antoninus Pius, Marcus's uncle by marriage. But Hadrian made one condition. Antoninus must in turn adopt Marcus as his own son and heir. And so, at 16, Marcus learned that one day he would rule the Roman Empire. He did not celebrate. He did not boast. By his own account, he was troubled. Marcus had never wanted power. He wanted to be a philosopher. He wanted to spend his days in study and reflection, not in the courts and councils of empire. But the Stoics had taught him something essential, that we do not get to choose our circumstances. We only get to choose how we respond to them. And so Marcus accepted his duty, not with enthusiasm, but with resolve. For the next 23 years, he trained under Antoninus Pius, watching, learning, absorbing the art of governance. Antoninus was a gentle and effective ruler, and Marcus studied his restraint, his patience, his refusal to act out of anger. He wrote of Antoninus, "In him I observed mildness of temper and an unchangeable resolution in things that he had determined after due deliberation, no vainglory in those things that men call honours." 23 years of preparation. 23 years of watching and waiting. Most of us grow impatient after 23 minutes, but Marcus understood that patience is not passive. It is one of the most active forms of courage there is. When Antoninus finally died, in the year 161, Marcus became emperor at the age of 39. And almost immediately, the world began to fall apart. But we will get to that. For now, rest. Let the patience of Marcus Aurelius, 23 years of quiet preparation, wash over you. There is no rush tonight. There is nowhere you need to be. Marcus Aurelius became emperor in March of the year 161, and from the very first day he was tested. The Tiber River flooded, destroying crops and livestock across central Italy. Famine followed. Then came reports from the eastern frontier. The Parthian Empire had invaded Roman territory and destroyed an entire legion. War, famine, disaster, all at once, all on the shoulders of a man who had wanted nothing more than to read philosophy in a garden. But Marcus did something remarkable. He did not panic. He did not rage. He did what the Stoics had taught him to do. He assessed what was within his control, and he acted on that alone. He sent his co-emperor and adoptive brother, Lucius Verus, east with an army to deal with the Parthians. He organized famine relief. He sold imperial furnishings and jewels from the palace to fund the response, rather than raise taxes on a starving population. And at night, alone in his chambers, he wrote, not proclamations or decrees, not letters to generals. He wrote to himself. He wrote the private journal that we now know as the Meditations. Never intended for publication, never meant for anyone else's eyes. Just a man, talking to himself, trying to stay sane in a world that seemed determined to break him. Say to yourself, in the early morning, I shall meet today ungrateful, violent, treacherous, envious, uncharitable men. All of these things have come upon them through ignorance of real good and evil. This was how Marcus Aurelius started his mornings. not with affirmations of greatness, not with prayers for victory, but with a sober reminder that the world is full of difficult people, and that he must meet them with understanding rather than anger. Tonight, let go of the difficult people in your life. Let go of the ungrateful, the envious, the unkind. They are struggling with their own ignorance, just as we all are. Breathe in and breathe out. Let the weight of your own crown, whatever responsibilities you carry, grow lighter with each breath. In the year 165, the Roman legions returned victorious from the east. They had defeated the Parthians. They had reclaimed lost territory. But they brought something back with them that was far more dangerous than any enemy army. A plague. What we now call the Antonine Plague, named after the dynasty of Antoninus, swept through the Roman Empire like fire through dry grass. It killed thousands every day. At its peak, it may have claimed 2,000 lives a day in the city of Rome alone. Scholars believe it was likely smallpox. Entire villages were emptied. Entire legions were hollowed out. The death toll, over 15 years, may have reached 5 to 10 million people. And Marcus Aurelius had to lead through it. He did not flee the city, as many wealthy Romans did. He stayed. He organized the response. He consulted with his court physician, the famous Galen, and made sure that medical aid reached not only the elite, but the common people. And still, at night, he wrote. Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. How could a man watching his empire die around him write those words? How could he find comfort in the idea that loss is merely change? Because Marcus understood something that most of us resist with every fiber of our being, that nothing in this world is permanent. Not our health, not our empires, not our lives. And rather than fighting this truth, he surrendered to it, not in despair, but in acceptance. He wrote, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. There is no morbidity in this idea. There is freedom. When you accept that your time is limited, every remaining moment becomes precious. Tonight, you are alive. Your heart is beating. Your lungs are drawing breath. That is enough. That is everything." As if plague were not enough, Marcus Aurelius faced the greatest military crisis Rome had seen in generations. The Germanic tribes along the Danube River, the Marcomanni, the Quadi, the Sarmatians, sensed Rome's weakness. The plague had devastated the legions, and so the tribes invaded. They pushed deep into Roman territory. For the first time in centuries, barbarian armies threatened northern Italy itself. Marcus had no choice. The philosopher who longed for his books and his gardens strapped on armor and marched north to the frozen banks of the Danube. He would spend most of the last 14 years of his life on the frontier, living in military camps, enduring bitter cold, sleeping in tents, commanding armies in battle. And it was there, in those camps, by lamplight, after long days of war, that he wrote the most profound passages of the meditation. Book 2 of the Meditations begins with the note, "Written among the Quadi on the river Gran." He was literally writing philosophy in a war zone. Think about that. A man surrounded by death and violence, choosing to spend his few quiet hours reflecting on virtue, on compassion, on the nature of the soul. He didn't write about strategy or conquest. He wrote things like, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." He wrote, The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. He was not writing a book. He was holding himself together. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson Marcus Aurelius offers us. That philosophy is not something you study in comfort. It is something you practice when everything is falling apart. Whatever battles you are facing in your own life, whatever frontiers feel hostile and cold, know that you have within you the same capacity for calm that Marcus found on the banks of the Danube. Let your body rest now. Let the wars of the day recede. You have fought enough for today. Behind the emperor and the general, there was a man, a husband, a father, a human being who suffered private grief just as deeply as he bore public duty. Marcus married Faustina the Younger when he was in his mid-20s. By all accounts, he loved her deeply. Together they had at least 13 children. But this was the ancient world, and death was a constant companion. Of their 13 children, only 5 survived to adulthood. Marcus buried child after child. Infants, toddlers, young children who never had the chance to grow up. We can only imagine the weight of that grief. The Meditations rarely speak of it directly. Marcus was a private man. But the passages about loss and acceptance take on a different meaning when you know what he endured. All that is harmony for you, O universe, is in harmony with me as well. Nothing that comes at the right time for you is too early or too late for me. How do you write those words when you have buried your children? How do you accept the universe as harmonious when it has taken from you the people you love most? This is not easy philosophy. This is not a greeting card. This is a man wrestling with the deepest pain a human being can know, and choosing again and again to find meaning rather than bitterness. He wrote, "Never value anything as profitable that compels you to break your promise, to lose your self-respect, to hate any man, to suspect, to curse, to act the hypocrite." Even in grief, Marcus refused to become someone he was not. He refused to let pain make him cruel. He refused to let loss make him cynical. If you carry grief tonight, if there is loss that you have not fully processed, let it be here with you. You do not need to push it away. You do not need to solve it. Just let it rest beside you, as Marcus let his grief rest beside him on those long, cold nights on the frontier. Let us speak now about the book itself, the work that has survived nearly 2,000 years and was never meant to survive at all. Marcus Aurelius did not write the Meditations for you. He did not write them for posterity. He did not write them to be published or studied or quoted on the internet. He wrote them for himself. The original Greek title, if there ever was one, may have been ta eis hauton, which translates simply to himself. These were private notes, reminders, exhortations, a man telling himself, over and over again, how to be good, how to be patient, how to face death, how to endure. And that is what makes them so powerful. There is no performance in these pages, no attempt to impress, no carefully constructed argument for a reader, just raw honesty. The Meditations are organized into 12 books, but they do not follow a clear structure. They are not a treatise. They repeat themselves. They circle back to the same themes again and again: impermanence, duty, the discipline of perception, the shortness of life. And that repetition is the point. Marcus needed to remind himself of these truths every single day, because every single day the world gave him reasons to forget them. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work. As a human being, what do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do? Even the Emperor of Rome had trouble getting out of bed in the morning. Even he needed a pep talk. There is something deeply comforting in that. You are not weak for struggling. You are not failing for needing reminders. The most powerful man in the ancient world needed them too. Let that truth settle into you now, as sleep draws closer. No theme runs deeper through the meditations than this one: that everything ends. Marcus returns to death again and again, not with fear, not with dread, but with a quiet, steady gaze. Alexander the Great and his mule driver both died, and the same thing happened to both. They were absorbed alike into the life force of the world, or alike dispersed among its atoms. The greatest conqueror in history, and the man who drove his mules. In the end, the same fate, the same dust. Marcus wrote these words not to depress himself. He wrote them to free himself. If even Alexander is forgotten, if even the grandest achievements are swallowed by time, then what is there to fear? What is there to cling to? What is there to lose sleep over? Survey the records of other reigns, he wrote. How many, after much effort, soon fell and were resolved into the elements? He listed them: Vespasian, Trajan, Hadrian, great emperors, all of them, all dust now. And Marcus knew that he, too, would join them, that his name would one day be just another entry in the long record of those who came and went. But rather than despair, this gave him clarity. If time will erase everything, then the only thing that matters is how you live right now, in this moment, with this breath. Do not act as if you had 10,000 years to live, he wrote. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. Tonight, you do not need 10,000 years. You have this night. You have this breath. And that is more than enough. Let the weight of eternity fall away. You are here. You are breathing. Rest. One of the most practical teachings in the meditations is what scholars call the discipline of perception. The idea that we can choose how we see the world. Marcus put it simply: choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been. This is not denial. This is not pretending that bad things don't happen. It is the recognition that between an event and our response to it, there is a space. And in that space lives our freedom. Someone insults you. The words hit your ears. But what happens next is entirely up to you. You can choose to be wounded, or you can choose to see a person who is suffering, lashing out from their own pain. Marcus wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" Think of the last time you were angry. Really angry. How much energy did it consume? How many hours of peace did it steal from you? And did the anger actually solve the problem? Marcus dealt with betrayal, incompetence, corruption, and ingratitude every single day. He ruled an empire of 60 million people. The opportunities for anger were endless, and yet he chose, again and again, to reframe, to see clearly, to strip away the emotional charge and look at events as they actually were. When you are disturbed by things, he wrote, it is not the things themselves that disturb you, but your judgments about them. And it is in your power to wipe out those judgments right now. Tonight, if your mind is churning with worries or frustrations, try what Marcus tried. Step back from the thoughts. See them as clouds passing across the sky of your mind. They are not you. They are not permanent. They are just weather. Let them pass. Let them go. By the year 175, Marcus Aurelius had been emperor for 14 years. He had fought plague, he had fought wars, he had buried children. And then came the deepest betrayal of all. Avidius Cassius, one of Marcus's most trusted generals, the man who had helped win the Parthian War, declared himself emperor. He spread a false rumor that Marcus was dead and seized control of the eastern provinces. Marcus could have raged. He could have called for blood. Instead, he reportedly said that he hoped to resolve the situation without violence. He said he wished to pardon Cassius, not punish him. As it happened, Cassius was killed by his own soldiers before Marcus could reach him. When Marcus received the news, he expressed sadness, not satisfaction. He had lost the chance to show mercy. Marcus spent his final years back on the Danube frontier, fighting the Germanic tribes once again. His health was failing. Ancient sources suggest he suffered from chronic stomach pain and may have been dependent on a drug called theriac to manage it. He was tired, he was sick, he was far from home, and still, he wrote, "Soon you'll be ashes or bones. A mere name, at most. And even that is just a sound and an echo." Think of how many physicians are dead now, after knitting their brows over how many sick beds. How many astrologers, after predicting with great pomp the death of others. How many philosophers, after endless, pompous discourses on death and immortality. There is almost a dark humor in these passages. A man who knows he is dying, watching the absurdity of everyone, including himself, who has tried to outsmart death. And through it all, the same steady refusal to be anything less than good. Whatever exhaustion you carry tonight, whatever battles have worn you down, you have done enough. You have endured enough. Rest now. Marcus Aurelius died on the 17th of March in the year 180. He was 58 years old. He had been emperor for nearly 19 years. He died in his military camp, likely near the city of Vindobona, modern-day Vienna. The exact cause of his death is debated. Some historians believe it was the plague that had haunted his reign. Others suggest it was the cumulative toll of chronic illness. According to the ancient historian Cassius Dio, Marcus's last words to those around him were simple. When his officers asked to whom they should now look for guidance, he gestured toward the rising sun and said, "Look to the sun. I am already setting." And then, reportedly, he pulled the covers over his head and passed from this world. His body was returned to Rome, where he was deified, declared a god by the Senate. A great column was erected in his honor, carved with scenes from his wars. An equestrian statue of him, one of the few ancient bronze statues to survive to the modern day, still stands in Rome on the Capitoline Hill. But Marcus would not have cared about any of that. He had written again and again that fame was meaningless, that monuments crumble, that even the names of the great are eventually forgotten. What mattered to Marcus was not being remembered, it was being good, right now, in this moment. And perhaps the greatest testament to his life is this, that his private journal, the book he never meant for anyone to read, has been read by millions of people for nearly 2,000 years, because what he wrote was true, and truth, unlike fame, does not decay. And so we come to the end of our journey with Marcus Aurelius. Let us gather the lessons he left us and carry them gently into sleep. First, you do not control what happens to you. You control how you respond. This is the foundation of everything. Second, you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind your thoughts. You can choose which ones to follow and which ones to release. Third, everything is temporary. Your troubles, your triumphs, your life itself. And in that impermanence, there is not tragedy, but liberation. Fourth, be good, not for reward, not for recognition, but because it is the only thing that is truly yours. Your character is the one thing that no emperor, no plague, no war, and no misfortune can take from you. Fifth, you will die, and so will everyone you know, and so will everyone who remembers you. Let this truth be not a source of fear, but a source of urgency. Live well. Live now. Live properly. And finally, be gentle with yourself. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, had to remind himself every single morning to be patient, to be kind, to not give in to anger. If he needed that reminder, you are allowed to need it too. The night is deep now. Your body is heavy. Your mind is quieting. Marcus Aurelius is gone. Rome is gone. The legions and the plague and the frozen Danube are gone. But the words remain. Dwell on the beauty of life. Watch the stars and see yourself running with them. See the stars now, behind your closed eyes, vast and ancient, and indifferent to all our small worries. You are part of that vastness. You are made of the same atoms that burned in those stars, the same matter that formed the marble of Roman temples and the ink on Marcus's pages. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Let your thoughts grow soft now. Let them become like water, flowing gently towards silence. You have lived today. You have endured today. And now, like Marcus pulling the covers over his head for the last time, you can rest. Sleep well. Tomorrow is a new morning, a new privilege, a new chance to be good. But that is tomorrow. Tonight, just sleep.